All right, all right. My man Drew Keaton, this is Truth Unveiled. Do your thing, brother.
Listen, welcome, and good evening, people. We have a wonderful, wonderful show tonight. First and foremost, this is the Truth Unveiled, where we talk truth, we talk to ordinary individual people that walk the walk, talk the talk. And today we definitely have one of those people. But before we bring him on, let me give this warm and kind welcome to him. So let me just backtrack. St. Thomas More. I get on this campus. I think I arrived there on a Saturday, and the players, we unpack. Sunday morning, we ball in, and I meet this individual. He got a 5-star show on. Big guy, husky guy, not husky, but decent guy. And I'm a little skinny guy, and hey, how you doing? Welcome to St. Thomas More. And then he gets up on me, guarding me and all of that. And yeah. We having this, little, conversation. And so my roommate at the time, I meet him. His name was Reggie Miller. He was out of Orange, New Jersey. Who's this guy and all of that? We thought he was one of the players. Come to find out, he was one of the faculties and staff there and all of that. So to make a long story short, we get ready for class in the morning. St. Thomas More, you had to wear your tie, you had to dress up and make sure you did the room inspection. So I see get my schedule, and I see on my schedule it says Black History. So I was like, oh, okay, we got Black History class up here. So I was like, I can't wait to go to that class. So about noontime after lunch, we go walk to Black History class. And me, a brother named Rick, and Reggie Miller was talking. We was like, we're going to have Black History class. It's going to be another white teacher. What they know about Black history, it's going to be a waste of time. All right, we just go in here and we just play the role, because we were the only 3 black players on the team at that time. We just going to come in here and we just going to, do what it do and just, laugh at this white teacher they try to teach us. We walked in and opened the door, and there was this brother with a black mock neck, black gown with an afro and glasses, with his hands standing up. And we should have seen our faces when we walked in the door. This is a true story, and he's a testimony because he's right here. You should have seen our faces. We were like, yes, we're going to do this. And he looked at us with a glaring look and was like, gentlemen, come sit down. And before I introduce him, I felt like he was teaching to us. He continued to focus on us and look at us. And D-Moss, I'm not telling you no lie. The lessons basically were planned around us. We didn't care about all the white other students that was in the class. Yes. And this is no other than Mr. Reginald Bullock, man, my Black history teacher at St. Thomas More. Welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You know what's funny? As you're telling that story, people have to realize we're not that far off in age.
Yeah.
And so I was a young knucklehead doing it. So when I think back, I said I was teaching them. That's kind of wrong, but I didn't care, because I'm like, nope. I never had a black teacher in my life.
Yeah.
Growing up in the Bronx, I never had one. I went to an all-black high school, 2,000 kids. I never saw a black teacher. They had a couple in the school, but I never had one. And so now with my opportunity to do that, to be on the other end, and I guess it was kind of unprofessional, but I would look at you guys for the answers, questions, and I would look at them and say, hey, y'all are in this, right? Y'all are in this. But that's what it was, just being that young and being not afraid to, tell the truth to kids. I don't know if I would have done that a couple of years later. Well, actually I did, but I don't know if I would have done that way. But yeah, it's very, very interesting. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, so we're going to get into what you're doing now, though. But just how important was, because we went to a school. It was, and I know a lot of the conversations, and we deal with it right now in the Springfield school systems. Growing up, I only had one Black history teacher. Her name was Miss Bud Celeste Jackson. Now, who she is, and she was actually my favorite teacher. I see her now. She was like, "You were my favorite student." But I only had one, and that was when I was a senior in high school. And then I had Mr. Bullock. So I really didn't get a chance to open up, my whole knowledge of history until actually I really started with these 2 teachers and Mr. Bullock, though. So teaching on a school, like what was the climax, like teaching the climate, like teaching at a St. Thomas More with all the white students, and you see a Reggie Miller and Andrew and Rick come in there. Like, what was that climate like? Tell us, like, how would that, climate?
Well, even before I get to the climate, I just want to tell you where this came from. It came from my mother was constantly feeding me Black history stories. I don't think she was well equipped as far as knowing her history, but she had to connect Blackness to everything that we did. So, like, if we were traveling down the road, remember when you went to St. Thomas More, they had the rocks, the little stone walls on the side as you get close to campus? My mother literally said, "You know who built that, right?" I'm sorry to do voices, but that's me. She said, "You know who built that, right?" I said, "Who built that, Mom?" "The slaves built that." I'm like, "Really? How do you know the slaves built something that's still existing, these little stone walls?" But everything she did was, she put that in my head about, back then, because I got a few age on you guys, a couple of years on you guys, one of the things that I saw was, and you could ask your older brothers, sisters, even your mother and father, when it was a Black person on TV, the whole neighborhood stopped. So if the Brady Bunch had one Black friend, everybody say, "Yo," they would call up, "Yo, they got a Black dude on the Brady Bunch," and you just stared at the Black kid. He's like, "What is he gonna do?" You know what I mean? And so Blackness was so taken away from us that when it was given to me, it put me in that position. And this is one interesting story. I'll never forget this. From first grade to 8th grade, I lived in an all Black section, but my parents sent me to a private school in a white section of the Bronx. Believe it or not, they had white sections back then. And so I would get on this bus, go to this white section. There were 2 other Black kids in the class, Gregory Wilson. What's up, Greg? I know you're going to be watching this. Gregory Wilson and Carl Nelson. They were very good at their grades. And I was a kid. It was 20 kids in the class, and we went from first grade to second grade to third grade, the same kids. And so first grade, I got, I was a D student. I was proud of that D because back then they would leave you back. If you didn't have the right grades, you got left back. And the biggest thing at the end of the year, you got the report card. You would look. I wouldn't even look at the grades because I know I had D's. I would look at the back of the thing. And it would say, "What year you promoted to?" I'm like, second grade. Ain't nobody gonna clown me. Third grade. Ain't nobody gonna clown me. So when I got to the 4th grade, I will never forget this. And it's not so much anything that has to do with me, but it shows you how a young Black kid can be stripped of certain things at an early age and doesn't even know it, and the parents don't know it, and the community doesn't know it. So for 4 years, there was only one kid, my grades were better than this kid, Jerry Siren. He was the kid that taught me how to curse. Little white kid taught me how to curse. So Jerry Siren always had like D minus, and I had like a D. Everybody else did well. Carl and Gregory, the only 2 other 2 Black kids who I was tight with, they had A's and B's, and there was one this white girl. She went on to become a lawyer right now, Mary Messner, and they always had A's. And so back then, they don't do this today. Teachers will read out the grades, and the smartest students are, they would go through this whole thing, and they wouldn't say the dumbest student, but they would say you need a little work, but you would know where you stood. 4 years I did that. And then during that time period, I think it was 66, somewhere around there, they had this thing where they were introducing Black history into schools. So this private school got a free box of these Black history books. And the teacher said, "We're going to set down history for this month." It was probably February. I don't know what month it was at that time. But they set these books aside. And let me tell you something. I opened up these books, and for the first time, I'm seeing Black people in the books, whether they were enslaved, whether it was sinking, it didn't matter. And I'm flipping the pages like a madman. None of the kids are talking to me. My parents aren't influencing me. And I go home and I start reading this thing. And then when I got back, I literally, for the first time, the teacher's reading off, okay, the top 4 students are, first person, Mary Messner. Everybody, yay. Second person, Reggie Bullock. Now the whole room, even Carl and Gregory, they didn't have really haters back then. They're like, "What? Wait a minute, hold up. This kid is a D student, and his name was named second." And then they were 3rd and 4th. So they came up to me, and I felt weird. They came up to me like, "Yo, how'd you do that?" So what do you mean, how'd you do that? How'd you do what you just did? I said, "I don't know, I just studied." And in their mind, they were like, no, we're superior to you. We've been doing this 4 years. You are a D student. You are not supposed to get A's with us. So then we had another test. Same thing happened this time. I beat Mary Messner. I was 1st place, and somebody was 2nd place. And so now the teachers write my parents, "What's going on with your son? He's all of a sudden doing well. What is he doing well in? He's doing well in this Black history thing we're doing. What about math? Oh, no, he's still getting D's in that. What about all the other stuff? No, he's still getting D's in that. But something's going on with the Black history thing." And we had 4 tests. And I'm telling you now, I will never forget that. Not because I did something, but what it shows me when I look back is, whoa, there was some misconnection there with, you know how many kids that would have done that for? You know how many people, even today, if they knew their real history. And so that's what started it. Even though I'm not answering your question, that's kind of what started the whole thing of me, you know, just literally saying, no, I'm important. And I only saw myself in whatever they did, I saw myself. And that's what made me, you know, start to want to teach Black history and want to do Black films today.
Okay. So how did you end up in Connecticut, and how did you end up at St. Thomas? You know, I got to stay on St. Thomas.
Right.
How did you end up at St. How did you end up at St. Thomas More teaching Black history? I
had a basketball scholarship. Years, I won't name the years, show my age, but I'm up there. But anyway, I had a basketball scholarship years earlier. Went to Eastern Connecticut University. I thought I was better than what I was. I wasn't. I had no left hand. Believe it or not, I was fast, but I had no left hand. And so I ended up going to Eastern. I had a couple of other options, but I felt if everybody on my team was going D1, and if I felt I didn't go D1, I looked down at Eastern. I really didn't play there. And so I finished in 4 years. And then after that, I got a job working at some cable company. And my parents, you went to school and working at a cable company? I said, yeah, but it's good money. And then finally, I went up to St. Thomas More to play ball one day. And your coach, believe it or not, he was really young then too. Your coach, they're playing, and I went out there and played with them. And they just happened to fire the B team coach. They fired him. And they asked me, would you ever want to teach? And I said, no way, I could never work with kids. They said, yeah, but if you want to coach basketball, you gotta do it. So I said, if you're gonna let me coach basketball, so I went up there. They were paying for, you know, all my living conditions and stuff like that. And so that's how that happened. And then jumping to Black history, they said, what do you want to teach? And I said, well, kind of history. And then teaching history, I asked them one day, I stayed at the school long enough. It was like 2-3 years when you got there. I was there long enough to say, hey, you know what? Would it be okay if I taught a Black history course? They said, sure, go ahead and do it. Now, they didn't know that what was in my head. They didn't know that Malcolm X, Huey P. Newton, they didn't know stuff like that. They thought it was, and Frederick Douglass, and so that's what they thought was coming at them. They didn't know that, no. This kid had grown up in the Bronx. He grew up 20 minutes from Harlem. He knows where the Audubon Ballroom is. Right. He's going to come out differently, so, yeah.
Listen, but I know Darryl might have any questions, but after this, I gotta say this, D-Moss, because it's the funniest thing. I remember sitting in class, and the crazy thing about it is because Mr. Bullock is dope when you can ball with your teacher, and he balled with us. He practiced with us and balled with us, and everything, and really, you know, he gave us gems. He would always like pull us to the side and give us more than he would give anybody else. And I really am indebted to you for that, because you did that a lot for me. And you know how I feel about you.
Yeah, thank you.
But one day we walked in class, Darryl, and I kid you not, he said, sit down, I want to show you something. And he put on the Black Panthers.
Right.
And he didn't put on the PBS version of the Black Panthers. He put on some raw footage of the Black Panthers.
Oh, wow.
And the cussing and everything. And everything was coming out. And we were sitting in there, and the white boys in the class were like, they were at an attention, tense. He'll tell you tense. And when the class was over, they walked out, and Mr. Bullock put us three and said, don't never be ashamed of who you are. This is who you are. You're not that other stuff. Like, we never watch civil rights stuff with people getting beat down. Yeah. We watch the other, like the other stuff. And it's like, to that day, I have a vivid memory. And to that day, that stuff like sticks out to me. And I still remember, like, that's why I said he was teaching to us, because after the class, like, he would pull us to the side and was like, well, we got to get to another class. No. What did you get from that?
That's dope.
Did you do that? It was dope, D-Moss, man. I'm telling you.
Dope. Yeah. Wow. I tell you, to this day, there's still Black students who don't have teachers who are willing to teach real history, you know, from an Afrocentric perspective. That's what's up.
Right.
So let me ask you this, and then we'll build into the conversation because I think history is critical. You prepared yourself because you were already getting tidbits of it. I ain't gonna say your age because I don't know it, but I heard you say 4th grade and in the 60s. I think you're about with me. I'm gonna say you was alive. You was alive when Dr. King was alive, right?
Yes. Oh yes.
All right, there we go.
I remember it. I remember what I was doing when he was shot. Oh yeah.
Oh wow, wow. See, it's stuff like that. It's interesting because people talk about Dr. King as if that was 1,000 years ago.
Yes.
And that's the thing about history, man. It's just as current as it is the past, as present as it is the past. So people don't understand that because I was alive, but Dr. King was alive. When you tell young kids that, they're like, "Yo, how old are you?" And I'm just like, not very. So it wasn't, everything we're dealing with today. We talk about, the trials, tribulations, and challenges, obstacles from yesterday. It wasn't that long ago. You talk about the Black Panthers with Huey P. Newton and all them cats. That was just yesterday for some of us. Yes. So let me ask you this. What was the reaction of your colleagues when you started teaching at St. Thomas More, when you started teaching Black history? Did you get any complaints from parents during that time period? It looks like we're talking Keaton. We're probably talking mid to late 80s. So Black history still was just a conversation piece. Right. It wasn't something that actually happened in most schools, public or private. So what was that experience like? I mean, talk about that for a minute as we build into the other stuff.
D, that's a great question. I'm ashamed to say this, but this is the climate back then. And I mentioned this to Andy earlier when we were talking on the phone. I pulled that off. And when I say pulled it off, I pulled that off like we was running the Underground Railroad. I'm being honest. To show Louis Farrakhan in 1985. And he saw a classroom. You can't put Louis Farrakhan on now.
Yes, he did.
Right?
Yes, he did.
Right. 1985. I'm showing clips. And the only thing that saved me, I think all the white kids liked me enough to where they were like, I was trying to convince them that you got to see the other side. You got to see our side to understand whether you like it or not. And so I had such a rapport with them that they didn't go home and report this stuff. And I think it was so shocking to them that they didn't know what to do with it. Now, of course, Reggie, Andy, and Rick Ingerman, of course, they were loving it. They're not going to say anything. And it got so bad that when I left St. Thomas More, after 10 years, I taught at this larger, predominantly white high school. And I'm sure some people are going to hear this, but it's too late. I'm not working there anymore. This was the system we had. I had an old classroom that I used as my office, right? And this old classroom could hold like 30 kids, but it was my office. So I had all the Black kids because they hired me because there was about 200 Black kids in the school and no Black teachers. 2,000 students in the school, not one Black teacher. So they hired me. They got me under the gun. They got me there. And I said, well, I'm going to need videotapes and this and that. They gave me everything I needed. And what I did was, and this is sad to say this, I would never do this today, but this is what I did this was like in the early 90s. I had one kid stand at the door after I developed their trust. I developed these kids' trust first. I had one kid stand at the door, one kid hold the remote, and I would teach and say, okay, click the remote on. This is Huey P. Newton. This is Malcolm X. This is really Malcolm X. It's not the watered down version of, he changed later on. Nah, he didn't change like that.
It's like that.
But the thing was, I had a person, if you go to Norwich, Connecticut today, you pull over anybody on the side of the road, any Black person on the side of the road, particularly the boys, that's 40 years old and above, and you ask them, hey, did Mr. Bullock actually had your guard in the door when he put on films? They would all laugh and say, oh yeah, I remember that. I literally had a person, as soon as somebody would knock on the door, it could be another principal, you heard that boom, 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 boom. It was like clockwork. Turn off the TV. The other person would say, hold on a second. And they would open the door. And I would stand there and I would go into my voice, hi, Mrs. So-and-so, how can I help you? I would literally do it. I went from, okay, this is what the Panthers was like. Y'all got to understand. They fought. And I'm not saying y'all supposed to carry guns in the street, but y'all got to do the right thing for each other. Y'all got to protect your women. You got to do this, do that. Boom, 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 boom. Hi, Mrs. So-and-so. How are you doing today? And I said, okay, what do you need? I'll get those papers up to you right away. They closed the door. All the kids would giggle. And then we would start to think of this was for 10 years. I would never do that today. I wouldn't recommend to a young Black teacher. I would say be more authentic. But you got to realize during that time period, if they even heard, and that was why the question you asked, Steve, was a great question. Right. How did you do that? How did you pull that off? It was some sneaky stuff because I'm telling you, if they had heard, if Mr. Handman had heard Andy back then, that he's showing Farrakhan clips in the mid 80s.
Yeah.
Right.
80s. I would have been out the door. So, you know, we were doing what we could do, but today I would do that.
You know what? It's fun. It's funny that you say that. One of the guys, we was in practice one day, and one of the guys, Peter, you probably familiar.
Yeah, I know Peter Hopper.
So to bring Darryl up, Peter was a jokester.
Right.
He was from New York. He wasn't racist, but Peter would play the race in prep school. He would do that. But if anybody said anything to us, Peter would really like jack him up. He's a white dude. He's from New York, a great ball player within himself. Yeah. And he said in practice, one day we was in practice and we were shooting free throws. And Coach Quinn said, "What are y'all learning in Black history?"
Ooh, I didn't know.
So Rick goes to start talking and Reggie nudges him and is like, we learning the basic stuff. And Peter Hopper says, "Man, we learning some militant stuff. Militant."
Did he say that?
Yes.
Wow.
And Reggie said, "You don't even know what, you know how they used to go back and you don't even know what militant is."
Right.
So Peter thought about what he said and he said, "Wow, Mr. Billock's a good dude. We getting the good lessons." And the funny thing about it is about 2 minutes later, Mr. Bullock walked through the door. So me and Reggie looking at us like laughing. We like, "Oh man, I hope this don't stop." But just to say this is sometimes you had to be careful, but we were getting so much in that class. Like we were always early to that class. We wasn't late. We were getting, and Darryl, he was dropping gems on us, man. I mean, like we were late to other classes because Mr. Bullock was dropping gems on us, and to the point where he trusted me and Reggie so much that we would go to babysit at his house for his daughter, and he was still dropping gems from us. Like I never remember him saying, "Andy, you're a good ball player, but you gotta hit the books. You gotta do this." Like it was always gems, and you gotta know who you are, and who. Like he would like nonstop to us, and I really appreciated that when you did that to us. I mean, and that's what we're missing right now.
Thank you, Andy. Let me tell you something. I'll tell you a quick Peter Hopper story. I will never forget this because Peter, this is why I say you can always learn from somebody, even from other races, even you can learn stuff from a race. I really believe if you listen hard enough. Peter said to me, I played a Farrakhan clip, and Peter was sitting there angry because this is when Farrakhan was in he's more mellow now, but he was in the height of his heyday.
Oh, absolutely.
Peter came up to me and said, "You know what?" He said, "Something about this guy." And I thought he was going to say, "He's a racist, B. I don't want you to play that in that class again." I'm telling him. You know what he said to me? He said, "I don't like anything that he stands for." But then he goes, and I'll never forget this. He says to me, "But you know what? I can't disagree."
Wow.
He said, "B, this is messing me up. I don't like anything he stands for." In other words, this guy's complete opposite of everything I am as a white kid. But I can't disagree. He said that. I will never forget that because what that told me, that was a lesson he taught me. That told me that if these kids, even white kids, were taught the truth, they would for the first time have to start, wait a minute, start rethinking about how they've been taught and the tricks they've been played on.
I believe that everything is about narrative. And if the narrative is completely skewed, Black history is just as important for Black people, for white people as it is Black people and others. Yes. It's all about the narrative. I wish when I was in school, I had a teacher who would drop jewels. I had no Black teachers, and the Black teachers that I had growing up in Meriden, it was head down, quiet, whisper, stuff. I wish I had cats like that. I'm hearing what you're saying, and I'm digging it because it's one of the reasons why I started working with young people from the time I was in college all the way up to now. It's like you want to give back. You want to be able to tap them on the shoulder and school them like, listen, you need to do ... and ... Have you ever read this book? I'd get suspended from school, and my mom would take me up to Summers Prison to go visit my Uncle Roland. That brother would have books for me. The first time I read Ralph Ellison's Invisible Man when I was in high school, I read Malcolm X. Every time I got suspended, he would give me a book. So I wasn't as fortunate as Drew. My early education came from getting in trouble, going to see my uncle in lockup, and him giving us books. Right. And we would read them. I became fanatical about Black history. So talk about narrative, because I know you're also a filmmaker. You're a historian, you're a filmmaker. And And that's all about shaping narrative and teaching people how to think critically, gaining an understanding of who they are, where they came from. As we talk about Sankofa, you got to look back to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about the importance of narrative in terms of how it impacts what you do. Then let's hear about what it is that you do, that you're doing now.
Well, I'm gonna combine both of great question. I'm gonna combine both of these questions into one answer. The narrative, what I'm trying to do, I've created a series called Greatness 5.
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to do is something that I did in the classroom before, but this time people can see it. I've got the technology to do it the right way. What I'm trying to do with this is I've had 4 episodes. The 4th episode is coming out soon. It's about Muhammad Ali. But what I'm trying to do with the first 3 episodes. First episode was on Malcolm X. The second episode was on Martin Luther King. And the third episode was on Huey P. Newton and the Black Panthers. And what I tried to do was I said, okay, what is the one thing about Malcolm X that the average black and white kid and even adult does not know? And I said, forget about the stuff where they were fighting where he supposedly got in a battle with the Nation of Islam. I said, tell the story of how the country was following him step by step, how he had the CIA, the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover was running the FBI. He had a police citizens task force that was of 40 people that was designed in New York just to follow him. And when this man went overseas, they were telling the French government, say, hey, don't land your plane here. Why? Because they were fearing that he was going to be assassinated. And so this was done at the highest level. So what I wanted to do was show how this man told the same story we all know. Okay, he came from a place of dysfunction. He came from a place where, you know, he was a drug dealer and did all this other stuff. But then make sure you focus in on that one piece that he was so powerful. They were afraid he was going to approach the United Nations. Mm-hmm. Just tell that part of the story. Don't go into the other parts that everybody knows and how it ends. Of course, you're going to tell how it ends, how he died. But leave that for the other people. Tell this piece of the story that people don't know. And if people could see that, they would look at him differently. They would say, wait a minute. Whether you're white or black, you have to say, that guy didn't have some kind of power. Forget what was going on with the Nation of Islam. Forget what was going on, how he changed.
Bigger than that.
Why would he be bigger than that? Exactly. And so that was what I wanted to focus on. But added to that, I wanted to squeeze this thing into about 15 minutes. Because I said, well, you're going to shortchange? I said, no. If a kid watches this, it's going to make him interested in watching more about him. And if an adult watches this, they're going to say, wow, they killed that man. They absolutely killed that man. And then what I did was I put sad music on the end to show his funeral. And the reason why I did that is not for effect to make people cry, but to say this man was human. He was more than the term by any means necessary. Right. With Martin Luther King, I went the same route, except, you know, you show the I Have a Dream speech. But then you show the clips where King is literally saying 5 years after the I Have a Dream speech, he's saying, hey, I think my dream has turned into a nightmare. I never heard that as a kid. Right. I never heard that as a teacher. When I told you, Andy, I did not know he ever said that.
Right. And you know what's crazy? Malcolm, we talk 2 things that resonate with me. When you talk about Malcolm, when you look at what's happening now, when the conversation revolves around racial equity and human rights, Malcolm was on his way, and I think he did approach the United Nations once. And he was trying to gather African nations, the African Union, to address the issue of human rights violations, because he said you couldn't fight for civil rights if you don't have basic human rights. Right. Most people don't know that. Yes. When you talk about Dr. King, you hear about I Had a Dream, not realizing that came in the last couple of minutes of the speech when Mahalia Jackson and the folks were in the background. Tell him about that dream, Martin.
That's right. She said
the name of the speech was the bounce check speech, talking about how America had bounced a check and they made a promise they couldn't keep. And he talked about the human rights violations. Right. So nobody talks about that stuff. So I just had to highlight that because
and it's funny too, not to cut you off, but it's funny when you said that because also in the film he didn't use the word reparations. But when they asked him, they said, why is it that African Americans in 1968, how come they haven't made it in other groups that came over? And King went into explaining financially, but you never hear that part. Oh, I have a dream. That's all you hear. When you talk to white kids and black kids today, I talked to my son and said, what do you know about Martin Luther King? And then the other part was, I forgot that his house was bombed. I forgot that his sister's house was bombed. I mean, his brother's house was bombed. I forgot that his mother was shot in the head playing an organ on church on Sunday. That his brother mysteriously drowned. So when you think about all that stuff that happened to him, no, the only thing we know about Dr. King is I have a dream, because that's an easy soft sell to America of why you should like this guy. Just love him like a dream, and it's just crazy that we don't know that history. And then the last one, with Huey P. Newton. The main thing I wanted to show was Huey P. was tight with Marlon Brando. Huey P. was tight with Jane Fonda. Huey P. was tight with this one white actress. Her name escapes me right now. Huey P. was tight with John Lennon of the Beatles. So you look at Jane Fonda, you look at Jane Fonda, Marlon Brando, and John Lennon. They were three white icons. But I never heard of this stuff. I didn't know this stuff when I was teaching Andy. I was like, what? They completely wiped that out of the history books. And if we knew that, we wouldn't look upon them like all the white kids at St. Thomas More would say to me, Mr. Bullock, the Black Panthers, they're just like the KKK. I said, no, brother, no. It's nothing like that.
Yeah, Huey P. Newton had Marlon Brando speak to the state of California on the behalf of the NRA to let them carry guns.
Yes. And so that's the hidden history. And now with the Ali, the one coming up with Ali, I'm going to talk about his boxing, but the main thing is, hey, what happened to them years that we seem to skip over now where he joined the Nation of Islam? Right. What was he saying then? Right. What was he doing then? And everybody's forgot about that. They only remember Parkinson's. Yeah. They remember the Fast Ali and the Parkinson's Ali. But they never that time period with Malcolm that everybody's wiped out.
That's interesting. Now you have a clip here. Can we show a clip?
Absolutely, I would love that.
All right. So there's two of them. I'm gonna play the one with Muhammad Ali. Here we go.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event.
Keep the camera moving because I'm kind of fast. Keep the camera moving.
You my opposer when I want freedom. You my opposer when I want justice. You my opposer when I want equality. You won't even stand up for me in America for my religious beliefs, and you want me to go somewhere and fight, but you won't even stand up for me here at home.
The fourth episode of Greatness 5, When Cassius Became Muhammad, premieres 11/11/2020 on YouTube. Subscribe now. Hit the notification bell.
Man, he was fast, man. That was, oh my God.
I got to ask y'all a question as I'm watching this with you guys. It's a wonder that he did not get killed and assassinated during that time period.
Yeah.
Seriously, they were killing everybody.
Because if they were,
you have to think about, like, why didn't he get killed?
Because they didn't want to make him a martyr.
Yeah.
I'm really strongly considered. When you read some of the COINTEL papers, they followed him, they tracked him, they spied on him. They did not want to make him a martyr. If they had done that, they were trying to restabilize Black America at the time after the 68, after the King riots, Atlantic, the Jersey riots, all that stuff. The last thing they needed to do was kill an icon like Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
They did not want to make him a martyr. What they did try to do is associate him with negative folks and try to demean and devalue his character so that we wouldn't really look into his political and social-political viewpoints.
Right.
They did a great job. When you talk about controlling the narrative, they had complete control of the media, period.
Complete control back then.
Everything. They blacked out a lot of the good stuff that he did, but what they did not want to do was make that man a martyr.
Yeah. You know, when you said, I just want to throw this in real quick. When you said they had complete control of the media, and I think about what you guys are doing right now, there was nothing like this when I was a kid, when I was a teenager. There was nothing like this. The closest thing where you saw 3 black people talking on TV was Soul Train. That was it.
Right.
You know, and Video Hotbox when that came out, you know, later on in the 90s when hip hop. But that's it. So this is why it's so important what you guys are doing. Anybody listening to this, y'all look crazy if you don't follow these guys right here. I'm saying.
You know, another thing too I respect about him is he took a lot of his platform overseas too with a lot of his interviews.
Yeah.
And he was raw in some of those interviews too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, and to Darryl's point, he's right. I mean, they tracked him and they didn't want to make him a martyr. But one of the things that I really like about him is he, you know, all with the turmoil with the assassination of Malcolm X, he basically, you know, he didn't back down. He really stood in it. I mean, a lot of black people, because of his boxing skills, he drew a lot of black people to him.
Right.
You know, so they really understood where he was coming from. He was an awesome man, and even till this day, man. I mean, even until the day when you know the stuff with him and Howard Cosell is classic. It's classic when they, you know, with the race stuff with those two, man. So
you know what's funny? My mother. I remember the first time I watched boxing on TV.
Sorry.
Featherweight. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Anyway,
No, go ahead. Finish it.
I watched these 2 little skinny featherweights and they hit each other. And my father, he's laughing. And we were in the bedroom. My father's laughing. He said, "Look at them. They look like little chickens hitting each other." And it was like featherweights. And I never seen punches go that fast in so many combinations. So my mother comes in the room and she said, "This is disgusting." She said to my father, "Reginald, why are you watching a sport where you got people punching each other in the head? That's like slaves beating each other." And I remember my mother's impact was strong. I did not want to watch boxing.
right.
Wow.
3 years later, when Ali becomes famous on TV, where he becomes a TV icon, my mother allowed me to watch all them fights and was rooting for him.
Right.
So why did this woman who went from, she could see the slave narrative of this thing, she could see it. Now, why all of a sudden you want Ali to win? Because see, Ali stood for much more than just boxing.
Right.
Much more to her, you know.
It's so crazy because you talk about life in the 60s and 70s. Sammy Davis Jr. was like the superstar because Sammy was always on TV with Dean Martin. It's like you'd watch those stupid movies just because Sammy was in it. Ali had that same effect. Ali, not only he was, I mean, you're the heavyweight boxer of the world, you're the heavyweight champion of the world, you're the king of the world. You're the baddest man on the planet. And not only was he like Jack Johnson in terms of being the baddest man on the planet, like Jack Johnson, he carried our burdens with him. And he utilized the platform in a way that no other mega superstar has done. So I remember watching, was it Channel 3 in front of little ugly box colored TVs and cousins. Everybody would be there. The room would be jam-packed watching Muhammad Ali fight because Muhammad Ali actually, truly, literally represented black people.
Yeah, well, you know what he made me feel? He made me feel, I didn't mean to cut you off, D.
No,
he made me personally feel, and I know so many, almost every black person tells the same story. Ali is the only one, the first one, that made me feel personally that I was good looking. He made me feel like, no, black is beautiful. When he would pat his afro, little mini afro, he would say, "Ain't I pretty?" And he would just pat that thing. You see, I was told that thing was nappy, that thing was curly, that thing was, you gotta get his training comb. Ali would take his hand and pat, "I'm so pretty." And he would pat his hair, "Look at me." And what that told me was, I'm good looking too. And it told every black person, you're good looking, your skin, your hair, your nose, all that stuff. And that's what he did for me personally. I will never forget that. I said, I want to look like Ali. I used to want to look like Paul, what's his name? Paul McCartney of the Beatles. That was the guy that was sitting in my house. I walked around, it's a little side joke. Paul McCartney, you always walk like this, you always walk around like this. So when I was like 6 years old, we were at Grand Central Station, New York, walk around like this. And my mother said, what's wrong with your mom? I said, little Paul McCartney. My Aunt Bertie said, you look like a fool. That's I look like Paul McCartney. I said, no, you don't look like Paul McCartney. Stop. But what's crazy about it is, after Ali, oh no, I didn't want to look like Paul McCartney. Right. I didn't want to look like Elvis Presley. There's one person I wanted to look like, one person I wanted to be. But I knew my skin color, I knew my hair texture. Because I had very, very, I knew it was right because of him.
Right. So I'm
gonna read a quick quote by Muhammad Ali, and I hope it's in the documentary. I'm looking forward to watching it. Why they asked me to put on a uniform? Let me preface it with this. My dad did a tour of duty, and I talk about it all the time because as we talk about Americans and how patriotic they are, my dad did a tour of duty in Korea, came back, went to Tuscaloosa County, Alabama, and him along with all the other black vets got chased up north, not only for jobs, but to save their lives. So we talk about Vietnam, which is like 10, 15 years later. Ali makes a statement. Why should they ask me to put on a uniform and go 10,000 miles from home and drop bombs and bullets on brown people in Vietnam while so-called Negro people in Louisville are treated like dogs and denied simple human rights? No, I'm not going 10,000 miles from home to help murder and burn another poor nation simply to continue the domination of white slave masters of the darker people of the world over. This is the day when such evils must come to an end. I've been warned that to take such a stand will cost me millions of dollars. Flag that real quick. But I have said it once and I'll say it again. The real enemy of my people is here. I will not disgrace my religion, my people, or myself by becoming a tool to enslave those who are fighting for their own justice, freedom, and equality. If I thought the war was going to bring freedom and equality to 22 million of my people, it wouldn't have to draft me. I join tomorrow. I have nothing to lose by standing up for my beliefs. So I'll go to jail. So what? We've been in jail for 400 years. Wow. This is the heavyweight champion of the world. He's making hundreds of thousands of dollars, equivalent to millions of dollars today.
Yes.
Love the fact that nowadays you figure we would have advanced by then, but we still talking about chasing bags and getting money.
Yes.
This dude turned down millions.
Millions.
Stood his ground. He faced going to jail. Stood his ground. And if that man didn't teach you to stand for something with your head held high, not only was he bad in the ring, but intellectually, his intellectual capacity, far outweighs any of his colleagues or any of those pundits on the sidelines who were attempting to judge him.
Yeah, and you know what else? Oh, I'm sorry, Darryl. You know what else is so powerful? You know what else is so powerful about what you just said? I remember when he went to the draft. Remember that all the media outlets was there at the draft when he went to the day he went to the post office. And they thought that he was going to change his mind because they threatened him with jail. And remember when he stood up there and looked at the media and said, I'm not changing my. Remember he took his glasses off?
Yes, yeah.
It's like I can't be bought or sold.
Yeah.
Want me to tell you what he said? I got it right in front of me.
Yeah.
Bring it.
He said, I strongly object to the fact that so many newspapers have given the American public and the world the impression that I have only two alternatives in taking this stand. Either I go to jail or go to the army. There's another alternative, and that alternative is justice. If justice prevails, if my constitutional rights are upheld, I'll be forced to go neither to jail or to the army. In the end, I'm confident that justice will come my way, for the truth must eventually prevail. And he walked off with his entourage, and they were out of it.
Yeah.
What's crazy is he could have cut a deal like Elvis and Lewis and Jackie Robinson. He could have cut a deal where he just exhibitions because they didn't want any celebrity to go over there and get shot and killed. That's the bottom line, because that would be bad for the troops here. They were like, wow, a celebrity got killed. So all he had to do was box exhibitions. He could have come back and made more money. He was like, no, I'm not going to do that because you're using me to get other brown people in this situation and kill them. You're not going to use me for that. And a lot of people today, I'm not getting on hip hop because I love hip hop. It's part of hip hop. It's part of my soul. Growing up in the Bronx, you cannot hate hip hop. But there are people within my hip hop community that would have taken that deal in a minute, because when you get out, you're going to get more likes. You're going to get more everything. It's going to come to you. Just act like you're a hero. come out, put the uniform on for a year or two, come out, and you good. No. Ali said, no, I'm going to give it all up.
Right. Absolutely not. So let's talk. You did the series for the Grateful Five. What about the War for Soul? Because that was really like one of your first projects.
Yeah.
That you got a lot of acclaim. Talk a little bit about War for the Soul, because it was powerful. If you had a chance to see it, it's very powerful.
It's funny. I don't push War for Your Soul now, just for one reason, because there's a lot of dynamics that changed from the moment that I made the film. Like, people ain't loving Obama. They're not. Just the weather, no matter what side you're on, they ain't loving him. And I kind of hyped him up in the film because at that time, it was a big thing. The second thing I mentioned in the film, before I even go for it, I mentioned something about we will use our excuses instead of gathering together, pooling our resources. And I used the comment at that time. I used the comment that we're gonna blame our situation, we're gonna blame the police in our neighborhood, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. Now, if you see the film now and you hear that part, they will blame the police in their neighborhood. Well, now things have changed a little bit. It was always bad, but now it's gotten worse. But anyway, going back to the question that you asked, A War for Your Soul came from just Obama won the election. And I said to myself, well, can I create a film that speaks to young Black kids and make them understand what this moment was? Because at that moment in time, it was a big moment. And for me, when I saw Michelle Obama, I didn't relate to Barack just simply because he lived in Hawaii, Indonesia, all these other places. He was half Black, half white, not knocking people who were biracial, not even knocking it. It was a different experience for me. But when Michelle walked out, Michelle came from a 2-parent home. Her parents were hard workers, just like my parents in the Bronx, my parents in Chicago. She went to school. I went to school. Her brother played ball. His name was Craig. My middle name was Craig. That's what my family called me. So when I saw her walk out with the 2 little girls, I started crying because I was like, yo, this is real now. Not because Barack wasn't real. I just didn't relate to him like that. But when she walked, I said, no, that's a real sister. And those are real little Black girls. And they are in the #1 position in the United States. So when I saw that, I started crying. And then I thought about it. I said, you got to make some kind of film within 15 minutes that explains everything from 1619 up to that moment. Can you do that? And for whatever reason, I don't go to church all the time, but I'm very spiritual. Something took over. I don't care when anybody says something took over. When people tell me that was genius, because the film ended up, 20 million people saw that film. CNN, Michael Ba's show, all these outlets, they were flying me all over the country, resorts to stay to watch this film, colleges, universities, synagogues, all these different places, right? So it was a big thing. But I never could stand up and take full credit for it. Now, greatness, how bad am I at? But I couldn't take credit for it because I said, no. Something used me that night because I did it in 2 days where this dialogue came out of me where I said, if evil could speak about what it does to Black people, what would it look like? And so what I did was I talked about these are all the tricks and plans of what happens to Black people. But the scary part that people that love War for Your Soul, even now to this day, they've called me and said, were you a psychic? I said, no, I wasn't a psychic. Because at the end of the film, or toward the very end of the film, it's being narrated by this evil thing. Some people call it the devil, some people call it just evil. But at the end of the film, this evil voice, which is mine, done with enhancements. But the evil voice says, but don't worry about Black people. They'll get distracted with all kind of stuff. 4 years from now, we'll be right back in the same place. They are filled with distractions. And people call me now and say, wow, how did you know that? So I just felt that at the time. And here we are again. We're going all kind of different ways again. But like I said, the film did very, very well. And that made me think, wow, you can make films. Now, the film, I will say this for anybody looking up on the internet, it is horribly made. I didn't know what I was doing. I'm just putting clips together and putting pieces together. I had no idea how to work anything. And so, but for whatever reason, whatever I was trying to say came out. And I was going to go back and change the film, but I had major film directors call me and say they saw this and they said, don't change a thing. I said, why? It's poorly done. They said, no, it's the spirit involved in this thing that made it work. But 20 million people, all throughout Africa.
Congratulations.
Yeah. But I believe, to be honest, I'm being very serious when I say this. I had it was a sister from university. She's from Africa. I forgot what African country. But she was teaching at University of North Carolina. They flew me down, And she said to me, once again, hear the voice, she said to me, brother, it's almost like you're ashamed of what you've done. It was really, really good. You take honor and pride in what you've done, me brother. And I said to her, I said, ma'am, if I tried to do that over and over again 1,000,000 times, I could never do that again. I said, you don't understand, I did that in 48 hours. So you can't make films in 48 hours. The only thing I've been working on for 3 months and I still have to go back. You know, you can't do that. So I do believe there was some high power that used me for whatever. Kids would cry. People, you should have seen the email list. This is frightening. My email list, I got 100 emails per day. Literally people crying. If you watch Warfield Soul Part 2, I have a collection of all the messages, the voicemail messages. At the end of Warfield Soul Part 2, you will hear people crying, calling, leaving an answering machine. Leaving message on my answer machine. I've never seen this. I'm crying. And so I can't do that. That's why I said there's a high power that did that.
Right.
I can't. Come on, man. You can't have 20 or 30 people leaving messages on your machine crying. When I call somebody, if I'm crying, I'm like, please leave the rent on. I don't have enough money to pay the rent. That's the only time you gonna hear me crying on an answer machine. Oh, baby, I didn't mean to call you to merge. Please come back. That's it. But don't these people cry. So I sat there and said to myself, I said, okay, what did you do? And that's where I had to pull back and say, okay, you were used by something in the sky, whatever you want to call it. You were used at that moment to do that. But that is not who you are. Don't get caught up in the, you think you work, you 20 million. No, stop it, please, stop. And that ended up, here's a funny side story. My sister, I got 3 keys to the city. Now, you probably ain't ever going to meet anybody that has 3 different keys to 3 different cities, right? So my sister said, this is insane. I said, isn't it? She said, how did he got like 1? And you got 3. How does this happen? I said, I don't know. She said, my knuckleheaded brother. But that's why I said, I don't get caught up into that. I really don't, because my goal with all my films and all the stuff I try to do, and Andy, you could vouch for this. If one person's life is changed, and people say this, I don't think they really mean it. If one person's life is changed, that means more to me than anything in the world, because somebody changed my life when they gave me that Black History book. Right. Somebody changed my life when they gave me, I don't know who it was. It was somebody in legislation that said, we got to get these Black History books out to these kids. And so I don't know who that person is, but they gave that book reached me, and it changed me forever. It made my relationship with Andy different. We wouldn't be friends now. So somebody gave me that book, so I can't take the credit for 20 million, 20 million.
Well, like I said when I spoke at the beginning, you definitely were a game changer in my life. And the crazy thing is, because of the age, you wasn't that much older than us.
Right.
But what you did for us, at once again, taking time for us, spending time with us, balling with us, throwing gems at us, all of this just for like teaching moments to us. Right. And I'm indebted and grateful for the relationship, because it did influence a lot into me. I mean, I can still recall vivid conversations that you had with us. And that's what it's about too. It was about it.
It's about the relationship along the journey. But like I said, I can tell you guys right now, I will never miss another show, whether I'm catching on tape of this show, because I'm learning things. D has dropped some gems on me that I'm sitting there thinking about. I'm like, wow, I should have put that in a film. But it's more than the film. He's dropping gems. You're dropping gems on me. And so this is something I told you earlier, Andy. I was talking to one of the students, and he was like, why are you proud of me? I'm like, you don't understand life. Black, white, whatever you're going through, life is not that easy. If you can make it to the other side of the coin of happiness, understanding who you are, that's all it's about. But when you do make it, you have to go back and say, it was the old lady on the corner that said, how you doing today, Derek? All right. You do the best you can, Sonny. And your grandmother who couldn't read or write, whatever. But she said, baby, you can do anything you want to do. It had to be your mother that has a great memory. It had to be all of these memories that took you to the point where you're going to die. And that's why, I honor you when you talk about our ancestors, Andrew. You talk about this all the time.
Yeah.
I think about the people that passed. I said, they're not gone. They're gone. If I want them to go, they're gone. But if I think about them, I think about how would they feel about me today? How am I honoring them today? Mm-hmm. So that's something I learned that from you. I learned that from a book. I learned that from you.
Yeah, and you know what is funny? Just to throw this in too, and I'm not saying it because Darryl's on the cast too. But even things like Darryl has said to me in the past, it's like you having that conversation with your ancestors, and like I could look at sometimes conversation with me and Darryl when we get deep, and I'm like, damn, he was here before. And that's true. I'm serious. It's spiritual. I mean, I haven't said that to him before, but I listen. I mean, my grandmother once told me when I was 4 years old that you're a vessel and you don't even know it. And I didn't even understand what she said.
Absolutely.
Now I'm understanding behind it at, because I might not say a lot of, you know how me, I mean, Darryl didn't meet me before, but you can tell me I was really quiet.
Right.
I was a quiet individual, but I always was observant to information and always seeing. So anytime I always pay attention to every people I'm around and what they're dropping, because I can always utilize it and take it for me. And a lot of stuff
you were extremely quiet. You were extremely quiet. You know, I wouldn't call it shy, but you were always observing things. But what I think was interesting about this show us coming together is we start off, and this is something that people didn't see before, but we start off with our connection. And then within 5 minutes, we end up with Darryl's connection and my connection. I'm sitting there, I spent so much time in the place that he grew up in.
Yeah.
I mean, we crossed paths.
Yeah.
Probably. You on the court. How many times you was at the ice cream stand? How many times we was at that famous, there's got a hot dog place that was really good. I think it's shut down. How many times were we there and we didn't even know it?
Y'all probably played ball against each other. You probably played ball against each other and didn't even know it.
Didn't even know it. And
listen, man, you talking
30 years later.
The names you mentioned, his wife Neve was like one of my sister's closest friends.
Right.
And so when you say that, you're right. Probably cross paths like, yo, what's up? It's like the head nod. What's up, man?
Didn't know. I got no idea. But that's where you see
something.
I think the ancestors, I really do believe they bring us together for a certain moment. Yeah.
You said something earlier. You said there's a quote. What did you say? If evil could speak, what was that? To what it does to black people. Can you say that one more time, but slower? That's about to be my Facebook status. I got to catch that one more again.
The whole film was based on this evil character talking to one of his minions, and the minion started out by saying, "Hey, sir, they've got a black president now. What are we gonna do?" And he said, "Oh, don't worry about them." That's how the film started. He said, "Don't worry about them. Let me show you the history of what I've done to black people." And so he goes from 1619 to 1719 to Jim Crow to the 80s. He goes all the way up and shows you all the evil things that the world in America particularly has done to black people in this country. Right. And then he said, I've beat them so bad that I've got them calling each other derogatory names. I've got them to the point where women are not women anymore. I've got them to the point where I could do anything. They got their kids selling drugs on the street. Don't worry about them. They always have an excuse, so they will never band together. I've got them under my control. And you watch, and then the film ends up with the character saying, "Sir, they're listening to us. They're on the intergalactic radio. They've heard it. Say, oh, don't worry about them. Even if they know the plot, they won't do anything.
They won't do anything."
They won't.
You said if evil could speak to what it does to black people, what would it look like? Is that the quote?
Yes, I did say
I gotta make sure I get that right. I think that's just so dope. And for me, it resonates because I'm looking at Donald Trump and Joe Biden the other day. I'm watching two renowned bigots having a debate, yelling at each other. When they got to the part about the black community, they automatically identified it with prison and crime and prison, slavery. We still slaves to them.
Right.
So it's like if evil could speak. You said that, and the first thing that stuck in my head was, oh, that debate. What would it look like? A debate between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. That's what it would look like to me. So you said, like, man, I'm about to post that right now.
Right.
Then I got something else I want to show real quick. I believe this is yours. I hope I got the right one.
Either one is okay because they're both ads for the show.
Here it comes.
Never in my wildest dreams did I think that God would use my film to help millions of people around the world. He is amazing.
Should whites be required to see this?
That's exactly where I'm leading. Ignorance has been permeating across this country. Whites are ignorant to the things that you just saw, as well as blacks. So everyone, that should be required viewing for every child in the school. And it should be required information disseminated in the universities as well.
Hello, I am Bishop Andy C. Luter, coming to you with a special presentation from Gospel Today Online. I share with you an independent filmmaker's wake-up call entitled A War for Our Souls. Do enjoy.
I want to warn you in advance, the DVD you're about to see is exceptionally graphic. I want to make it very clear, we did not produce this DVD. It was produced by a young man who is watching us today over the internet. His name is Reginald Bullock, and he's watching us from Tennessee. Our young men are disappearing either because they are being killed or because they're headed to prison for killing each other. Now, those statistics don't frighten you, then I want you to take a very sobering look at this DVD, because as I have been saying, you have to change your heart in order to change our heads.
I saw a video that was so powerful. In fact, in my mind, I had another message that I was going to share this morning. But when I saw this video, it was so powerful and so profound until every black person in the world needs to see this video. It was written and produced by a young brother by the name of Reginald Bullock, who lives in Tennessee.
Within the Chicago school children themselves, I think that you need to engage the children. I'm hoping that the school board would approve maybe what Father Flager is trying to do, is to get the schools to have a peace sort of UN council among the students themselves. That might be a needed thing. But there's a DVD called War on the Soul that a young man produced out of Tennessee that's going around on the internet. I think everybody needs to stop and look at that War of the Soul that they can find as well, to find out the underlying problems on a spiritual level, what might be happening.
That's my dude.
You got me crying. You got me crying, bro. You got me crying. You know why? I haven't seen that. I don't know if you heard me. I was going, no, that's not the one. That's the old. But I haven't seen that commercial in a long time. And that took me back. I'm seeing Michael Eric Dyson's wife. That was Andrew Luder, the head of the, that was mayor of Birmingham.
Yeah.
Like, when I see this, man, it's just bringing back tears just from the fact that I thank God, I thank the Creator for allowing me to be in a position to have people react like that.
Yeah. Hey, can I?
And it just, y'all are messing me up, Andy. I'm gonna get you for this.
I want you to tell the story. I want you to share this story with me that you shared. Your interview, real quick. Just be real quick about it, with the oldest civil rights woman activist that you interviewed recently before she passed away. Tell us what it was like to interview an icon like that, and just, because I know you told me you had chills when you interviewed her, and we talked. Remember, we talked before you were going to interview her, and we talked after. And I mean, once again, you were really emotional when you were talking to me about that. Like, talk about that real quick.
Okay, saying it as fast as I can. She was Amelia Boynton Robinson, and she was one of our greatest civil rights fighters of all time. She never got her due, I think, because she was brown skinned. I think because she was a tall woman, and I think she was willing to throw the dukes up. And she was opposite of what's her name?
Rosa Parks.
Rosa Parks. Although she was very good friends with Rosa Parks, Farrakhan came to her house, the house that I was in. I went to saw this woman on her 100th birthday. It's just me, her, and my son are talking on her 100th birthday. And talking to her, she's dropping gems. And the greatest gem she dropped on me, I still don't know if I could do this. She was getting her hair done because the next day she was turning 100. And so me and my son are sitting there, and Chief Frazier, he's the one that set it up. And we're in this little tiny house. And she says to me, I said, so how do you feel about Sheriff Jim Clark? They got him on film pushing you down the street, punching you in the back of the head. You're a woman dressed in. And she said to me, son, I can't carry that hate. And she said it like it was almost like a ghost.
Wow.
Like he already passed. She said, I can't carry that hate. I'm not going to make that man turn me into hateful. She said, I went to his funeral. And she said, people thought I was going to get up and push his casket. She said, no, I prayed for that man. Now, I'm not saying I could do that, but she taught me a gem that I'm not going to take the hate that this man did to us. He beat us. He hit us. He beat her. He beat this woman. They got it on tape. Mm-hmm. And she said, I can't do that. And she looked at my son and said, you know, credit cards are bad for you? And she started going at all this stuff. I said, 99 years old. Wow. And the voice, she had the voice where she said, you must understand, son. It was almost like listening to, what's her name? The great poet, Maya Angelou. It was almost like listening to somebody like that. But you felt, and I'm going to tell you, if you ever look this up now, see, I would fist fight you. I would come and find I'll find Darryl and I'll find you. If y'all ever find a clip of you, I'll find you and fist fight y'all. Let me tell you why.
You sent it to me. The one with you was crying, you sent it to me.
When I met her on YouTube, somebody filmed it and put it on YouTube. I wouldn't sanction this. I was sitting there like, oh. I was like a little girl meeting Usher or meeting somebody. Michael Jackson. My whole body language was and somebody put
but remember, I seen it. You sent it to me. I seen it.
I did. I must have been drinking.
I think I got that clip right now. Let me play this right now.
Oh, my body language. But you know what, though? When I would look back on it, I said, you would have done that if you met Dr. King. You would have done that if you met. You know who I met and started crying right away? Oh, man. He came to, see, this is what I'm talking about. He came to one of my speeches. And this man, oh, man, you know him, one of the top civil rights leaders. Oh, I'm drawing a blank. But anyway, he came. And I walked up to him. He said, Reggie, before you speak, I got somebody that's here to see you. And it's this old gray-haired man. He's sitting there. And I couldn't recognize him because of the gray hair, long gray beard. And I walk, it's what's his name? He got shot. Oh, you know who it is. You know who it is. I'm drawing a blank. But anyway, I walked up, I looked at him, and literally tears instantly started coming down. And I walked up to him and said, sir, thank you for what you've done for us. And that man looked at me. You know who I'm talking about. I'm just really drawing a blank. And I reached out, I shook his hand. He said, son, don't be crying. I ain't dead yet. And so, but that's the type of stuff that the creators, the ancestors allow you to go through. And you gotta stay, one of the things you've taught me, Andy, just in hearing you talk, you gotta stay humble in this. Yeah. You can't start thinking you're this thing. You can't. You gotta embrace the fact that this is part of all of us. You guys are my brothers. I've got to embrace it. I can't think I'm better than you. I can't think, I can't think like that.
Mm-hmm. Right. So that's powerful, man.
Yeah.
Y'all got me. I'm like, okay.
Listen, man, this is.
He tried to warn me. I didn't listen. I was like, okay. But then he got me. He said, oh, Meriden. Pow. I'm like, man, I've been hooked ever since.
Yeah.
I'm so digging this. I tell you, man, I wish I can go back in time and just, grab a video camera. I admire what you do. I appreciate it because these are the tools that my great grandkids will be looking at as they attempt to figure out where in the hell we messed up at during this particular time period. So these documentaries, some people see them as education. We talked about Ali earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Him not taking that deal became a teachable lesson to our young people about integrity, character, responsibility. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He could have took that bag, as these young cats say. He could have took the bag. But we teach our young people about what it feels like or what it looks like to walk away from $1 million contract.
Right.
Because of your principles and the values for what you stand on.
Right.
That makes things a whole lot different. So when I look at I'm dying to watch all your documentaries, watch the films, because we need this stuff. Because sometimes, like, I run a program on the weekends for young kids.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I know you got these joints condensed to 15 minutes,
right,
I can watch it with them because my attention span lasts about 45 minutes. Theirs is about 15. So it's right. It's just about right. So I gotta say thank you. I appreciate what you do.
Yeah.
Because we need more filmmakers talking about different points of our existence from different vantage points. You're right. When you talk about Dr. King, Malcolm, if somebody did Megger, they talk about his speech right before he died and then what happened in the driveway. That's all I ever see. Right. But nobody focuses on those points, those tipping points, when these phenomenal individual, regular people stood their ground and let their integrity and their character shine. So this is what you're capturing, man. So when you talk about greatness, that's the real greatness, man.
Right. That's true.
So I gotta say thank you, bro. That's just phenomenal.
And I gotta say to you guys, what you're doing right now is something that, can you imagine if the two of you you could go back and listen to your grandfather, and one of his friends kicking knowledge like we're doing now? Can you imagine? This is what y'all are doing is bigger than a film. What y'all are doing, your grandchildren, I don't know if you guys have grandchildren yet, when they get 30 and 40, they're going to sit back and say, what was going on? I got my grandfather, I got my dad, I got this. And so that was another reason for me to make the Greatness 5 series. It's because I said, you know what, it's not even about the famous or getting on Netflix. Because there's some little buzz about Netflix out there, keeping fingers crossed. But the bottom line is, I said, I don't care if it's Netflix. I want my son's grandson to be able to sit back one day and say, let me see what my great-grandfather was about.
Yeah.
And that's what you guys are doing now. But this is what you're doing is even bigger than a film, because the spirit of what you're talking about is more powerful than clips and slides. It really is. I honor you guys for what you're doing. I really do.
Right.
Yeah.
And Drew, we're way past the hour mark, man. Listen, I can go on with Reggie for another hour and a half. But bro, I think at some point we definitely got to bring you back. Just talking about the thought process that you put into each and every one of your films a little more in depth. And then I want to vibe with you a little more on your historical knowledge. And I would love to do a show, Drew. I want to do a show with about 3 or 4 historians.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah. It just vibe, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's good. We can definitely do that, man. So, I mean, once again, I you know how I feel about you, Mr. Bullock, man. You know what you did for us. So I really appreciate you everything you've done, and you taking the time actually to sit with me and D tonight. When you could be doing other things right now and just kick it. This is a conversation. That's what the truth is unveiled about.
Exactly.
It's about true stories, kicking it, unveiling the truth, and just having basic conversations, man, and just talking, man. So, and I know we don't get to do it as often. But
we're busy.
Yeah, we're definitely busy though. So, before we leave off, I know we got to go. Like Dee said, we well over all the. Any last things you want to say or memories you want to recap, or
I'll say this. I'll say this last thing. I got, you know me, I could talk all day. My mother said the only time I stop talking is when I'm sleeping. But the reality is, what I've gotten out of this is, for me personally, and anybody watching this, please participate. Please listen. I'm not saying this as a plug for you guys. I'm saying I feel good. And not because my brother's from Meriden, not because of the connection we have from St. Thomas More. I'm like, wow, we're in COVID. We can't meet like this.
Right.
So this is a nice meeting spot, along with placing our history out there. This is a nice spot for us to meet, and we need to do that. And even if you don't want to say anything, just listen in. Just listen in. This reminds me very closely of the barbershop in the Bronx, except them brothers didn't know the stuff that you guys are sharing. They didn't, but they were good, but they didn't know what you guys are sharing. And that's where I would like to lead people. Why?
Darryl, I got to drop one more gem, man. We was in the gym. Mr. Bullock once again getting physical with us. He didn't really know who he was, and he sat next to us, and he was like, "Where you from?" Springfield, Mass. First thing Mr. Bullock said, "Oh, Basketball Hall of Fame."
Yeah,
I didn't know they could ball up there. But I say that to say this is. He encouraged me, and there's some stories I can tell too that he knows about. He encouraged me, and he would always encourage me in the right path and right direction. And it wasn't just about ball, because a lot of people know that's what we was up there for, but it was also more about education and what we're gonna do. What are you gonna do after ball? And I appreciate that most from you. I just wanted to say that.
Let me say this last thing. One thing I want to say is that you and Reggie Miller, y'all were easy. And what I mean by easy is y'all were easy to teach and talk to. I think one of the things that, if anybody's listening to this show, they're hearing us talk and they're saying, wow, I want to do what Reggie did. No. It was easy to do. Y'all were listening, y'all were respectful, all that stuff. So it's very easy to get my message across. The problems that we're having in Black America as far as teaching our kids is, it's the kids that's not easy. I had a kid the very first day when I left that private school and went to a public school. This kid cursed out his mother. He didn't curse her out in front of his mother, but to me, she's an effing. He called every name in the book, and I said, Ruben, that's wrong. Come on, man. You can't talk about your mom like that. She gave you life. I get you mad. I get she's on drugs. I get this. But then this kid showed me another side that I had never seen, because I never dealt with this type of kid at St. Thomas More. You guys were there for a purpose. Either the kids were rich or either they played ball like you. But everybody's there for a purpose. He had no purpose. And that kid said to me, I said, come on, man. He said to me, I hope she dies, like right now. I said, Ruben, come on, man. Who says that? What black boy says his mother would she would die, even if she's on crack? He said, you don't know what my mother's put me through. And I looked at him and I said, he's crazy. Then I got in my car, went home, It was a drizzling rain. I will never forget this. I ain't gonna cry. It was drizzling rain. I'm driving my car. I got caught at a stoplight, and there's this brother walking across the street with an old carriage. Now, mind you, I'm still thinking about Ruben saying he would want to kill his mother. I threw him out in my brain. I said, he's done. You don't deal with kids like that. See, Andy and Reggie weren't like that. So, see, I ain't used to dealing with a brother like that. I pull up into the stoplight. It's rain and a little drizzle, and there's a man with an old baby carriage. You don't see these carriages anymore at that time period. And the carriage is open. I said, why is he pushing? He must be homeless with clothes in the carriage. And then I saw this little hand waving out the back. I said, there's a baby in there, and he's not covered. It was with rain. And it was an 8-year-old boy, maybe 6, standing next to him. They get to the other side of the street. This man reaches in the carriage. He grabs a wooden hanger. He holds it up in the air, and he screams at the boy. He said, I'm going to drop it. If you drop this, I'm going to beat you, you know what. And he's doing like this. He's faking the kid. And the kid, his eyes are wide open, and he's ready to catch the thing. And I yell, I said, yo, my man, what you doing? I said, well, he said, shut up, mind your business. I said, that is my business. You ain't gonna touch that little boy. And he kept doing it. And they went on their way. But my point of when I saw that, it connected to me what I saw earlier. I said, absolutely. You don't know what Ruben went through.
Exactly.
Ruben right there. And so I said, it's easy for someone like me to come along with these principles. We're going to show you Malcolm. We're going to show you Martin. Because then you run into the Andys. You run into the Darryls that are basically good kids that had some type of foundation. So it's easy to reach them and pull up. But the hard part is the kid that is filled with hate because of what the world has done to him. That's the difficulty.
Wow. Yeah. That's that mental health for black males that we don't talk about. That shoulder. We tell, suck it up, boy. Be a man. No, be a boy. Let's get you some help, somebody to talk to. Exactly. So those are things we got to work on. We just had a show this past Wednesday with 2 therapists, Dave Lewis and what's Dave's partner, Drew?
Gary Porter. Powerful show.
Okay. And we talked about that. We talked about situations like that. These young brothers, man, young brothers and older brothers, need people to talk to. I wish I had, man, I tell you, I got to say thank you, because if it wasn't for you, I probably wouldn't have met Drew, because I dug him, because I think one of our first conversations, we dug music, but then there was the whole Pan-African side. Wow. It was like, oh, I like this dude, but some of us didn't have educators like you that cared enough to teach us about Malcolm, Fred, and all that stuff. I would have paid. Whenever we got a new educator in our school, it's kind of like we be so gung-ho, then we find out, wow, this dude done timed out. Those are the teachers that we had. No matter what you try to do to gain their favor, if the white teachers marked you, then they marked you too. So we didn't have somebody who came in like, yo, come on, man, sit down, chill. I need you to stop for a second. Yeah. You know what I mean? So that's so valuable. It's so interesting because we can read history, we can talk about history, we can capture it in poetry or in our writing or on film. But it's another to make history when you stop and you work with a young man who may seem like he's at the end of his world.
That's it.
That might be that young man that might carry our community to the next level.
That's it.
You dig? So I think that's all right.
Because Malcolm was that kid. Malcolm was that kid.
Quite a few of us were that kid.
Yes.
I was anybody's favorite kid.
Right.
I stayed in trouble. So it's kind of like any of us could have been that kid. And sometimes we forget about, we talk about, there's no black unity and black folks don't help.
Yeah.
You said it earlier. Y'all kicked off the show. It's that next door neighbor who said, boy, you too smart to be doing that. Yeah. That teacher who took 5 extra minutes to sit you down and say, there's no reason for you to fail. People push us. Some people don't get those pushes, and we got to make sure that in the work that we do, we continue to push our people further and further and further along, create operational tools that they can use 100, 200 years from now.
Right.
I think we became the new them. We're those old guys we used to point fingers at.
Right. I know this sounds like a plug question, but it's not. Anybody knows me out there, I'm not plugging this. This is my own goofy stupidity, but I got to ask this. So how can I listen to your show? When does it come on? Well, I know you probably said, well, Reg, we already got that lined up in a thing. But for me personally, can you tell me personally, how do I listen? How to go back and replays? How to just tell me everything about this? I'm
gonna play it again tonight. I usually play them again tonight at 11. Friend request me and Darryl Malls.
Okay.
And when Darryl sends out the link or something, we can tag you into the show so you can regularly
I
check.
can tag my fan base too and let them, because they need to see
Yes, and you can share it on your page.
The easiest way to do it, facebook.com/OnDeckTV.
Okay.
Facebook.com/OnDeckTV.
Yeah.
And there are, there's a couple of shows that we do. Every Wednesday night is Black Health, because that's critically important. Every Friday, 7 o'clock, Truth Unveiled. Every Sunday at 3 p.m., we do a show called On Deck. We just, kicking about any socio-political issue happening during the day. And then there's Tuesdays, we talk about local politics. So if you go to On Deck TV, you see them all. So,
and Mr. Bullock, I'm cutting Darryl off because I'm just with Truth Unveiled. These are all the shows that Darryl do.
Right. Oh, wow.
This is there. That's D-Mars. D-Mars, I don't know how D-Mars don't sleep. So these are his shows, man. That's how passionate he has.
I'm a podcast connoisseur. I watch everything you can imagine because I've got, I didn't even mention this and it's not appropriate for this show, but I've got a comedy podcast as well. Where, I got characters. I got myself and this old lady, which is myself.
I listen to it. Yeah, funny.
And I'm imitating my mother and I'm imitating my uncle, who's a bootleg preacher. And so I got the three of them, but I've got it down to the point where it sounds like three people are talking at the same time. They're fighting. But my point is, in order to do that, I watch all types of podcasts. Everything from political to comedy to drink champs, everything. This is good what y'all doing. Not because I'm on it. I just see the vibe that y'all have. You guys have a good vibe within each other, and you guys are knowledgeable to ask the questions. This is very good. This is very good.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, y'all.
Man, we appreciate it.
We reached that point. Reggie, I got to say thank you. I look forward to having you back on the show. Well, we look forward to having you back on again. We'll probably have you on a few times. I had too much fun tonight.
Do you have any older brothers? You have any older brothers I can mention? Only reason I say that, I'm going to call up my ex in 5 minutes as soon as the show is over and say, do you know that? Well, it would be the Moss family, right?
Ask it. Yo, you say the Moss family, they'll be like, uh-huh.
Okay.
Just say the Moss family. They'll be like, which one?
I'm going to do that. I'm going to ask. Yeah.
So with that being said, thank you, everybody. And until next time, this is Truth Unveiled, D. Moss, Andrew Keaton, and my man, Mr. Reggie Bullock. All right, y'all. Stay black, peaceful. We out.
Peace.